All right, all sit back and relax because today's video is going to be a slight bit longer than you're used to, but I do think that you'll find there's some really helpful information in these next couple of slides. So I hope you enjoy what's being presented here. We're going to discuss illegal interview questions. Although these questions are not all technically illegal, they are ones that would get you into legal gray areas, and they're best to avoid. So they're what I call my no bueno questions. Just they're no good. You're better off not asking them. So before you start an interview, you need to prepare some interview questions, and you need to ask yourself, what is it that I'm trying to get out of this interview? And the point of an interview is to determine whether a candidate is a good fit for the position. And some of the things that you need to take into consideration are the company culture. That includes Douglas parking culture, the local culture that you have, like if you're in a different city like I am, and then a very localized location culture, which will include other employees, the local supervisor, property management, all those kind of things. And you need to form your questions so that they are getting information regarding the applicant's behaviors, not anything else really. You need to find out if their behaviors will allow them to fit in this position. Are they trustworthy, reliable? And you need to ascertain the candidate's strengths and weaknesses. And you need to ascertain whether this person can perform physically, emotionally, and mentally within this position, this role that you're hiring them for. So you need to ask yourself, what is it that I really want to know? What is the real point of my question? You must make sure you're avoiding getting information regarding, or you're asking questions regarding any protected class. Make sure that you phrase all of your questions carefully to avoid any perception of discrimination. You must avoid all questions that are not job related. Even if the interview is going well and you're getting along with this person, you're hitting it off, you find that you both went to the same high school, you grew up in the same neighborhood, do not let it turn into a personal discussion. That's when you can get in trouble because you get too comfortable and will ask inappropriate questions because you're having a conversation. It's no longer an interview. Also, it's never good to talk too much during an interview because then you wind up hiring yourself, right? You talk, the interviewee listens, and you say, wow, I really like this guy, and you hire him because you like yourself. And don't beat around the bush. Ask direct questions. Ask the question that you're trying to get an answer to. Don't ask a backdoor question. You must avoid asking questions that are related to an individual's race, color, or national origin, their religion, their sex, gender orientation, gender identity, sexual orientation, sexual preference, anything like that, pregnancy status, anything disability related, age or genetic information, citizenship, marital status or number of children, or arrest record. So, regarding someone's race or national origin, some no bueno questions. You cannot ask, are you a citizen of the United States? In the interview process, you cannot ask someone to provide their birth certificate. You can ask them to provide documentation that they're legal to work, but you cannot ask specifically for a birth certificate. Do not ask, where are you from? What country are your parents from? Things like that. What's your background? You can ask, what's your work background? Tell me a little about your work history, but not just what is your background. That can be construed that you're looking for race information. Do not ask, where were you born? How did you learn Spanish? Hey man, why is your Portuguese so amazing? Right? Is English your first language? Where do you live? A lot of these questions, although they seem innocent on the surface, and they can be construed in a negative way. So avoid them. So some bueno questions you can ask. Questions that are okay. Are you legally eligible to work in the United States? Can you provide proof of citizenship, a visa, or alien registration if we hire you? Are you known by any other names? Although I don't know why we would ask that. Will transportation to and from work be a problem for you? Again, what are you trying to get to? If that's what you want to know, ask that question. Don't ask, where do you live? Regarding religion, some no bueno questions. What clubs or organizations do you belong to? What is your religion? This one here, are you Jewish? Are you Christian? This is if it becomes like a casual conversation. Hey, I noticed your last name is Schwartz. My name is Douglas, and I'm Jewish. And are you Jewish? Right? Seems innocuous enough, friendly enough, but it's a question you cannot ask. Cannot ask, are you religious? Are you Christian? What religious holidays do you practice? Again, ask yourself, what am I trying to get at? Ask that question. Not, if you're worried about if they can make it to work every Saturday night. Ask that, not, do you practice a certain religion? As far as bueno questions, you can ask someone, hey, tell me about yourself. Make sure you educate yourself on the areas that are illegal for you to ask questions about. And then don't even try to find out that information. All right, for sex, gender identity, sexual orientation, some no bueno questions. What's your gender, right? What's your sex? I'm not sure why you'd ask that anyways. It's kind of a silly question. How do you identify? That may be more, right, with the political landscape now, how it is, more of kind of a thing right now, but ignore it. As far as I can find, there are no good questions that you can ask, so just avoid it. Someone's sexual orientation or preference has no bearing in their job, and you don't really need to know it, so just stay away from those questions completely. Regarding disabilities, some no bueno questions. You cannot ask if someone's taking prescriptions or if they have a disability. And those may seem a little obvious, but what may be a surprise is you also cannot ask questions about alcohol and drug abuse. Be real careful asking if someone was addicted to drugs, or how many times they used illegal drugs in the past, how often they drink alcohol. The reason for this is that alcoholism and drug addiction can be regarded in some instances as a disability, and that falls under HIPAA protections. So you cannot ask those questions. You can ask, it is bueno to ask, do you currently use illegal drugs? That's different. Someone who is currently abusing illegal drugs does not fall under the ADA protections. This one about convictions, this is questionable. Apparently in California you can't ask any questions about convictions or arrest, so maybe avoid it altogether. You can ask, have you ever used illegal drugs? That's a fair question. But you can't ask how many times have you used illegal drugs, because then it can seem like you're trying to determine whether or not this person at one point was an addict, which means they have a disability. So just avoid these questions. Also, in a state like California or Nevada where marijuana is legal, do not ask, hey, do you use marijuana? Right? I have bus drivers, and bus drivers, can't smoke marijuana. Therefore, I'm going to ask, do you use marijuana? But if this individual has a prescription for medical marijuana use, you can't ask that question. That's protected under HIPAA. So what you can do is make it very clear, although marijuana is legal in our state, we're a drug-free company, and marijuana stays in your system for, 21 days, whatever it is. And we do random drug tests as well as drug tests upon employment. In the instance of a bus driver, there are DOT mandated drug tests, and make it real clear that drug use is unacceptable within our organization. However, it's best to just avoid that question. Don't ever ask a question that you can get the information for in another way. So if I want to know whether or not you use drugs, and I know you're going to take a drug test, I don't really need to ask the question. That will show up in the results from the drug test. All right, age and genetic information, some no bueno questions. Not only can you not ask directly how old someone is, you cannot ask again a roundabout or a side question that's going to determine how old someone is. For instance, when did you graduate high school? When did you start your first job? Anything like that. You can ask, do you have a high school diploma or equivalent? That also, however, can be tricky, because if the job does not necessarily require a high school level diploma or education, then why are you asking that? It can be that you're discriminating against certain groups that, historically have lower percentages of high school graduation, things like that. So it's best to kind of avoid. You can ask, are you over 18 or over 21 if you're serving alcohol, right? Or things like that, but it has to apply to the job. So marital status, number of children. Don't ask what's your maiden name. I'm not sure why we would ask that. Do not ask, do you have children, or do you ever plan to have children? And this one's mostly for the guys listening, but do not ever ask a woman under any situation, are you pregnant? All right, never, ever a good idea. All right, work, personal friend, just don't ask the question. You get yourself in big trouble. So that's just a little advice, free advice from Dennis to you. You're welcome. Have you ever worked under another name? Is okay to ask. Also, this job requires you to work after regular business hours. Will this be a problem for you? All right, and so then here's some good sample questions. This first one, although not a good question, is a safe question. What are your strengths or weaknesses? I don't like it. I like to ask questions that dig a little deeper than that, but that get the same information out. I'm not going to read all of these off. I've also provided this slideshow and PDF format in the email that I've sent out today. I do like to ask, what was your favorite part or your least favorite part of your last job? What do you expect to get from working for Douglas Parking, right? Why are you applying here instead of over at McDonald's? I like to ask candidates what characteristics they expect in a boss or a supervisor. Why are you qualified for this position? Why should I hire you over the other 12 people I'm interviewing today? What do you know about Douglas Parking? I like to know if people know a little bit about us. I don't expect them to be Douglas Parking experts, especially frontline staff. I don't expect them to have spent a lot of time researching us, but it's nice when someone has, opened up a web browser and gone to douglasparking.com and learned a little bit. It's always helpful. And this last page is just some resources that I use to gather this information. The EEOC, the Equal Employment Opportunity website, that's a good one to go to if you have questions. That harvard.edu website actually is extremely helpful as well regarding legal questions. Okay, well, I hope you enjoyed this short video. There's some really good information in here actually, and I recommend you take the time to either listen to this video again in the future or pull out that PDF and review those questions, and especially kind of get at the core, understand why those are issues to avoid getting yourself or the company into any kind of trouble in the future. If you have any questions, as always, feel free to shoot me an email or give me a call, and I'll do whatever I can to help you out. All right, thanks guys. All right, all sit back and relax because today's video is